Okay, so as we have discussed, putting all of these audio tracks in order was a major component for us to be able to properly create our audio deliverables. So let's look at what we did. Track A1, we see that we've assigned to a voiceover only track. Track A2 and A3 are now dedicated to sync audio, and that's sync audio to the picture. And then these tracks all here are stereo effects tracks. And then looking down at the bottom here, tracks A10 and A11, we have our stereo music tracks. You'll also notice that we have some volume automation going on here. It looks like the music starts hot, comes under. Over here, we have a dip, probably to allow for voiceover. I also want to point out that this is a 13 track session. You'll see that there are 13 audio tracks, and over here in Final Cut, we have a little icon, and those icons are clicked, and that is a muting icon, and I just wanted to point that out because that will be important in a second. Having discussed how we properly set up our audio assets within our timeline, now we can go ahead and create that OMF file. So we have an in point, we have an out point, and in Final Cut Pro, all we do, come to our File menu, Export, and we want to export our audio to OMF. We click that, and now we're brought up to the OMF audio exporting dialog box. So there are a few things to look at here. You'll notice that it defaults to your session setup. So in this case, this is a digital video session, and so digital video defaults to 48 kilohertz as a sample rate. We have a bit depth of 16 bits. And then there's a couple other things to talk about here. Now, looking at this export, we do have some options. We can change the sample rate from our original 48 kilohertz. We can go down to 32 or up to 96. And we can change the bit depth from 16 bits to 24 bits. Now, we're just going to leave that the way it is. But I want you to see that you can alter these things when you're exporting your OMF file. Next, we're looking at a box that indicates the handle length of the media. Now, Final Cut Pro will default to 1 second of handle length. And, you know, in the audio world, we're talking about 48,000 cycles of audio per second. But in the video world, and 30 frames is not a whole lot of media if we want to do a nice, graceful fade in or fade out or crossfade. So I always suggest that we go ahead and we change that to at least 3 seconds, and really 5 is ideal. So we're talking about changing this to 150 frames of media for our handles. And just a quick reminder here of the handle. So here's our audio media, say for instance this stereo pair. The handle is the media that's either at the front or the end of each of these cut points. So in this case, we're looking at adding 150 frames here and 150 frames there. Now, the inevitable question about a handle length is, for instance, this is a music cue. What if that is the actual start of the music? And I want to go ahead and pull that. Well, there is no handle. There is no handle because that's the beginning of the cue. So we're just saying to Final Cut Pro, when you create this OMF file, please, if you have 150 frames of media, give it to me on either end of my cuts. You'll also notice that we have 3 checkboxes here, and let's look at each of these, including the crossfade transitions, including the levels, and including the panning information. I say let's go ahead and check all those. The reason that it's an option is that there were times when there was a bug for various reasons of OMFs and Pro Tools and Final Cut and the Avid and so on. All that's been worked out. This is key. So for instance, here we have include levels. If you look again at our music track, you'll see that we did a nice little dip here, probably to allow for a voiceover track, and then we have the music coming under. If we choose to not include those levels, all of these tracks, these music tracks, will just play full. In fact, not only just the music tracks, every single track in your timeline is just going to play at 0, or what we call in audio unity gain.